York City, our comments on the New York City's fiscal 2014 adopted budget are available on our website for review, and it has been a privilege to serve and to be part of this Financial Control Board. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Comptroller. I would now like to call on Jeff Summer, our Acting Executive Director, to present the staff's comment.
Thank you. Before I give a review, I'd like to, on behalf of the staff, take this opportunity to thank the mayor for embracing the financial planning process that was laid out in the law in a way that I think, as everybody has said today, allowed the city to have a stable financial outlook through many different troubles. And I'd like to specifically thank Mark Page and his staff for always being professional and cooperative in our dealings.
I'll talk to him about the cooperation.
A reviewing of the financial plan, the city has ended fiscal 2013 with a surplus of more than $2.8 billion, most of which is being used to help balance fiscal 2014. Since the executive budget, the surplus has grown by $630 million, mainly through increased revenues and debt service savings. In fact, there were $826 million of additional resources. The city chose to use $196 million for the early redemption of outstanding bonds, producing $98 million of savings in each of fiscal years 2015 and 16. Utilizing more than $2.8 billion from the fiscal years 2012 and 13 surpluses, $1 billion in agency actions, and $1 billion from the depletion of the Retiree Health Benefits Trust, the city has adopted a balanced fiscal 2014 budget. The budget projects a surplus of $142 million and an increased general reserve of $450 million to protect against possible disallowances in federal aid related to Hurricane Sandy. The out-year budget gaps are projected to be $2 billion in fiscal 2015, $1.8 billion in 2016, and reduced to $1.4 billion in fiscal 2017. The fiscal years 2014 to 17 financial plan shows that the city fund revenues are basically flat in 2014. While property taxes are projected to increase by $860 million, non-property taxes fall by $895 million. This drop reflects the reversal of the spin-up that caused local tax collections to surge in fiscal 2013 when taxpayers recognized incomes early in order to avoid impending federal tax increases. The financial plan also shows that the two fastest growing expenditure areas are healthcare costs and debt service. The large growth in healthcare costs is generated by both current and retired employees. Estimated spending is expected to grow from about $5.3 billion in fiscal 2013 to $8.4 billion by fiscal 2017, a 60% increase. In fact, the average annual growth rate of 12.5% from 13 to 17 is outpacing all other expenditure levels by a significant margin. The average annual growth rate for healthcare costs is expected to be almost double the 6.6% average annual growth rate for debt service over the same period. This makes the depletion of the Retiree Health Benefits Trust troubling. The trust was created to start to deal with the unfunded liability for retiree health benefits, which stands at $88 billion and growing by about $5 billion a year. This rising cost will continue to be funded on a pay-as-you-go basis with no plan to either reduce the liability or fund it. The four-year financial plan is based on reasonable assumptions with manageable risk and appropriate reserves. However, this could change dramatically depending on how collective bargaining with the city's unions are concluded. To date, labor contracts settled in 2008 and 2010 round of collective bargaining have expired, while existing contracts stay in place. As the mayor said, contracts with the United Federation of Teachers and the Council of Supervisors and Administrators have not been settled since the 2006-2008 round of collective bargaining. All terms of the last contracts remain in place. The financial plan assumes a 5-year contract with a wage freeze in the first 3 years, followed by 1.25% increases in the last 2. This is mostly consistent with the contract reached by the state with its employees. If contract settlements are higher than currently funded, the city estimates that each 1% costs about $308 million. The financial plan does not include any funding for retroactive increases. If there is a settlement with the unions who have not settled the 2006-2008 round of bargaining, granting retroactive 4% increases, the fiscal 2014 cost would be $3.7 billion and $1 billion in each subsequent fiscal year. The city to date has made it clear, as the mayor has today, that it is not obligated to pay retroactive increases, and more importantly states it cannot afford any such increases. The decisions made on the terms of future labor contract settlements will largely determine whether the financial stability over the plan period remains or if out-year budget gaps will increase, potentially causing disruptive service cuts or large tax increases that could slow the growth of the city's economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I'd like to ask the private members if they have any comments.
I'll speak on behalf of the private members. On behalf of the private members, I'd like to congratulate the mayor on his most recent adopted budget and four-year financial plan. By following the financial planning process laid out in the Financial Emergency Act, the mayor and city council have been able to continue to adopt balanced budgets while stabilizing the out-year budget gaps. The continued use of conservative revenue estimates and the depletion of prior year surpluses have allowed the city to continue to generate surpluses to prepaid debt service and balance the next year's budget. The ability to successfully manage the current year's budget to continue this practice will be tested. Over the last 4,221 days, Mr. Mayor, you've shown a long-term vision concerning diversifying the city's economy across all 5 boroughs. The development of the new Cornell Applied Science and Engineering campus on Roosevelt Island and increased tourism will hopefully make the city's budget somewhat less vulnerable to the financial industry. In addition, the development of plans to deal with the effects of Hurricane Sandy and finding ways to incorporate projects into the capital budget will benefit the city in the long term. The mayor's vision and planning, along with the associated economic benefits to the city, have clearly improved our financial standing. However, this long-term vision and planning has not resulted in a path to deal with the growing unfunded liability of retiree health benefits. As the staff and other monitors have pointed out today, healthcare costs are growing faster than any other component of the city's budget. They'll continue to drive the out-year budget gaps. Every year since we have been on the board, the private members have warned that each 4-year financial plan has been well constructed, but that the long-term outlook was troubling if the city did not develop plans to either reduce or to pay for retiree health benefits. The unfunded liability now stands at $88 billion and grows by about $5 billion a year. This compares to the combined outstanding general obligation and TFA debt of only $65 billion. The rise in the pay-as-you-go costs will continue and will eventually crowd out funding for other vital services. The planned depletion of the retiree health benefits trust this fiscal year as a step backwards. As others have spoken about today, the biggest unknown concerning the city's fiscal outlook over the next year is how negotiations with the unions on new labor contracts will be completed. These negotiations not only need to deal with any possible wage settlements, but must start to address the affordability of the rising healthcare costs for both current employees and for retirees. Contracts with substantial retroactive pay will have to have a clear path to funding. We're concerned that the path would have to involve either severe service cutbacks or crippling tax increases that would halt the growth of the city's economy. How these negotiations are completed will ultimately determine if the current 4-year financial plan is reasonable or if major revisions are necessary. The recent bankruptcy filing by the City of Detroit is a sharp reminder of the origin of this Financial Control Board and of the necessity to maintain prudent long-term fiscal management. Thank you.
With that, I'd like to ask the mayor if you'd like to respond.
A couple of things. You're 100% right that we have not had any provisions to fund the healthcare costs going forward. $88 billion, whatever the number is, it's a good estimate. And that's something that we just have to find a ways to work with the unions to stop those costs from growing. We did have some during surplus times, started to try to do that, but in the end, we needed to keep providing the services that the city needs, and so we used that money to pay the ongoing rather than to leave it in a fund for using the interest down the road to reduce that debt. And both John and Jeff mentioned the contracts with the teachers union and the supervisors. I think it should be said that the city did offer them contracts back then, essentially the same thing that everybody else took, and they decided to turn them down. So how they plan to catch up, I don't know, but the taxpayers of the city did what was right, and they chose not to accept it.
for their help over the past 4 years that I've been state budget director. There's no way that the state could get its budget house in order without the help of the city, and so I'd like to thank them both for that. Let's move on. I'd like to now call on Jeff Summer to report on the staff's findings regarding the fiscal year 2013 and their recommendation concerning the proposed resolution.
Thank you, Bob. I'd like to review the conditions set in the law that, if any were violated, would cause for the need to suggest a control period. The first condition is the city shall have incurred a deficit in excess of $100 million in the results of operations. The city has entered fiscal 2013 subject to the final audit with a surplus of over $2.8 billion and has prepaid fiscal 2014 expenses. The second condition is the city shall have failed to pay principal or interest on any of its notes or bonds when due and payable. The third is the city shall have issued notes in violation of the restrictions on short-term borrowing set forth in Section 9B of the Act. And 4 is the controllers shall have jointly certified that they could not, on the basis of facts existing at the time of such certification, make the joint certification required to terminate a control period. Simply said, that's what the law says. What it means is the two controllers say whether or not the city has access to financial markets. The city has paid all principal and interest on its notes and bonds and has not violated any of the short-term borrowing provisions of the FEA. I have also received letters from the state and city controllers informing me that they do not see any likelihood that they would have reason to issue a joint certification relating to market access. The last condition is the city shall have violated any provisions of the Act, and such violation substantially impairs the ability of the city to pay principal or interest on its bonds or notes when due and payable, or the city's ability to adopt or adhere to a balanced operating budget. The city has not violated any provisions of the Act. The staff therefore recommends that the board approve a resolution determining that as of July 23rd, 2013, none of the events which would have required the imposition of a control period has occurred, nor is there any substantial likelihood or imminence of such occurrence, and that the city is not experiencing fiscal stress that would jeopardize the orderly functioning of the city's fiscal affairs.
With that, does anyone on the board have any comments? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the determination. Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's adopted. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.